Welcome, everyone. I am Dr. Catherine Y. Brown. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to Beth DeCristofaro. Beth is going to share some information about her background. We're going to get to know her and do what we always do, talk about pulmonary hypertension. Welcome, Beth. I'm so thankful to you for taking time to be here with me today to share your story so we can learn more. So thank you again.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for asking me. Sharing this story is important, I think. I live in Northern Virginia. I am a mom and have a wonderful husband. My two daughters are adults, so they're not out of the house, but they're very much part of my life. My background has been in nonprofit work, and most recently, unfortunately, had to quit on diagnosis. I was a hospice chaplain. That was the last position I held and loved it very much.
Awesome, awesome. And my mother was a hospice nurse in addition to being a ER nurse. So I love all that you all do in hospice. So thank you for your service. Can you tell us about just your journey and also who is Beth? Because it's really important for people to understand that we are more than a diagnosis. We are a community, we are people. There was a life pre-diagnosis. There was the reimagining of life after diagnosis. So just your PH journey and let's talk about Beth.
Thank you. So I have pulmonary arterial hypertension. I probably had some symptoms that looking back could be identified, but I'm one of the lucky people who was diagnosed very, very quickly. Literally the end of September, I was beginning to feel pretty punky. And by November, I was on an IV Remodulin pump. It was that fast, which means that my life really sort of spun very much. And I really like what you said about we are more than our diagnosis. That is so very true. Yet it is certainly something that we have to deal with all in our own way and come to understand, come to appreciate, come to accept, because my life is very different now, which doesn't mean it's worse, even though it's not it's a nasty diagnosis. If you have to be diagnosed with something, make it interesting. And pulmonary hypertension is a very interesting disease. I had to quit my job. I was in very severe heart failure. And so I never had that moment of why me.
Mm-hmm.
Not only had I been with hospice long enough that we're all going to have this moment at some time, but my dad died of leukemia that should have been curable. So in many ways, I went through that 30 years ago when he died. But I did have that feeling of having life torn away. I loved my job. I loved what I did. I had to almost run out on my patients. I was not well enough to do all those closure visits that healthcare workers like to do. And so not only was I suddenly sitting on the couch struggling to breathe, instead of being out doing what I loved, I had the feeling that not that I was giving in to the disease, but the disease was taking over my life. And it took me several months to get over that. I think two important things out of that are that I right away found I was so very blessed with support, information, really good health providers, my own family. But I had to take care of my mom. She had moved in with me because of her continued decline of health. And so that kind of kept me going. And that was a very big thing. And that's where you begin to find, oh yeah, I'm still a daughter of this wonderful mom I'm still a mom of 2 kids who are now really worried about me and wanting to take care of me. I still am a woman of faith who knows that God's on my side in spite of, the physical difficulties. So that was a lot of um, learning in fits and starts over the next several months, maybe even more than a year.
Mhm.
And I've been diagnosed going on 5 years now.
Okay. Excellent, excellent. What do you think were some of the factors that contributed to you getting a quick diagnosis? Because as you know, that's not always the case.
Absolutely. So I feel that there were 3 guardian angel doctors that I met because I was actually diagnosed while on vacation in Montana. And I'll make it a very short story, but it's a long one. I felt bad on the drive out there. My daughter and husband, as soon as we got to where she was living, Missoula, Montana, took me to an urgent care. They looked at me and said, "You've got to go to an ER." My daughter took me to the ER, 2 hospitals in town, but the ER of the hospital that had a cardiac unit. I think right away we all thought I was having some kind of a heart attack. I knew it was pretty bad when the ER doc, after several tests, came and sat down, looked at me eye to eye and said, "Well, we don't know what's going on, but we've called our cardiologist on call, and that's good news and bad news. The bad news is she does not leave a stone unturned. The good news is she does not leave a stone unturned," and she didn't.
Mm.
So that was Friday. By Sunday, she and that second cardiologist knew what was going on with me and came in and basically said, "This is not good." And I knew. And then again, the blessing just continued to shower because I wanted to get home, even though they didn't want me to get on an airplane. We got home and I had called my PCP, my own doctor, to set up an appointment for the next day after getting home. She sat down and she goes, "Oh my gosh, what did we miss?" And we had a long conversation, and she had another patient with PH, and she knew exactly who to call. And I had an appointment with my current PH specialist within 2 weeks.
Amazing.
Amazing, amazing.
Beth, I want people to hear something powerful that you said. When you were not feeling well, you stopped and you got it checked out. And that's a reminder that when you're not feeling well, you know this body better than anyone because you're with it, to pause and get help. And the other thing is that you had healthcare providers that listened to you, and that leaving every stone, no stone unturned, that is very important because
Saved my life.
that honestly, that saves your life, right? And the
Yeah.
fact that you were able to get on the plane, you have a lot of guardian angels because
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
right? I mean, because that's one of the things that people as often are unable to do. And you got on the plane, you're like, hey,
Yep.
I'm going home.
Yeah. And I will also say, for those wondering about that, interestingly enough, I have yet to be on oxygen, but many, many people with PIH have to have oxygen because our arteries in our lungs are not able to deliver the oxygen. So that's what that's about. And yeah, I was very lucky.
How long did it find them to get you on the right medication regimen? And what was that like? Because you're a series of guardian angels. So
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
big
yeah.
here about this.
Right. So the very first meeting that I had with my new PH specialist, she did, there's a whole series of tests that really leads to the correct diagnoses. And you probably talk about those in other places. So after numerous tests, the first time we were actually sitting down with her,
And tell me
looking
on the
over,
test, because I want people to kind of know the process.
all right. Um, Obviously, you're going to get an EKG,
Right.
an echocardiogram. They did a VQ scan, which I'll be danged, I can't remember what that means. But basically, they look at your lungs after infusing you with a, a gas. It's okay, that will show up on either X-ray or ultrasound, I forget which. So that tells if you have blood clots or not. That's one kind of diagnosis, a separate kind of pH. They do what they call pulmonary function tests. I call them poof tests because you keep having to blow into things until you feel like you're going to fall over, and it measures the capacity of your lungs. I want lots of blood tests. I think that's it, except the main one that then is done. And I actually got that in Montana. I again got it right away here in Virginia, is a right heart catheter, where with a tiny little tube, they go in and measure the pressures right in your lungs so they know what's going on. So that takes several days. You're exhausted doing it. But there are different kinds of pulmonary hypertension, and they need to know what exactly you have. It's kind of like there are different kinds of cancers and different treatments. Now, it's not cancer, but they need to get you on the right treatment. And so right away, she started me on an oral medication called ambrisentan. And she said, I really want you to go on this medication called Remodulin. And the way they do that is you have a pump that administers it through a little port. Basically, it's right here in my chest, directly into my heart. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Absolutely no way. I've been in healthcare long enough to know how that can be pretty dangerous to have an opening in your body, right? I mean, your earrings, these close up really nicely. But this, so she gave me 2 weeks. She gave me 2 weeks on the ambrisentan and a couple of other things. I don't remember what. Came back, did some more looking, and said, you have 2 choices. And she actually also said this to Tony. Tony, she's got 2 choices, my husband. She can go upstairs right now and get checked in. She can go home, pack a bag, come back in the morning. We have to do this. You have no choice. You are that sick. So that's how fast it took.
That was fast, Beth. That was fast. So,
and yet, as you said, she listened to me. Yeah.
And you know what? And that also is a beautiful thing, because she let you try it your way, even though she she still will bring you back to her way, but she listened to you. She let you try it. And sometimes that is a process, because that is a very, as you said, it's a serious thing to have, and you have so many life changes, right? And so you have to make sure that you understand. How has it been for you with the right dosage, just caring for it, and all of those aspects of what that looked like?
So once it took several months. Most of these drugs for pulmonary hypertension, I shouldn't say most, but many of the drugs for pulmonary hypertension give you some pretty serious side effects. So it took me several months to be able to feel better. Now, my breathing got better pretty quickly, which said that the medications were already starting to work. When I was bound and determined to keep moving, because one of the things my doc, and having a specialist for pulmonary hypertension is crucial. So even though I felt like I could barely walk to the bathroom, she said, keep moving, your body needs to keep moving. And I would literally walk just around the cul-de-sac, 5 houses. But by the time I began to feel better, and I have felt better ever since, I now walk 2 miles a day in good weather, and do pretty well. I mean, I walk uphill and I have to catch my breath, but that's a whole lot better than I was. So Yeah, I've had an infection, which of course is scary. But the other piece that's really important to know is when you're on these heavy duty drugs, Flolan or Voletri or Remodulin and others, there's almost always a specialty pharmacy with nurses you can call. And my own doc's nurse, who is amazing. I've had 2 nurses now who are willing to have me, you know, text them. I don't do it at 3 in the morning, but I've got an on-call number. I can call at 3 in the morning if I need it. And that kind of support is what gets you through these. One of the lifestyle changes is when you have this sort of a pump, etc., it really becomes front and center in your life. It doesn't mean you are, I call it tethered. It's not a ball and chain, but you have to take care of it. That's
Absolutely.
just so important. But if you don't, you feel like crud. So it's a big incentive to take care of it.
Right. And that's true, right? You get it. You, again, as they say, you can try it your way or then try it the way that will be required to
Yeah.
to get back. So when you think about your story, and I've shared with you my journey. I'm on the road to 100 stories. What words of wisdom
Right.
you give to me and just for other people that are listening to you today?
Words of wisdom. I like what you said at the beginning, that we are more than our diagnosis. And I think sometimes we feel like we get lost in this
Mhm, mhm.
because there are chores to this you got to do. But then there are chores to being a mom. And I would never change that for anything. So knowing that doing the chores means I can be me is a better way of looking at it than thinking I'm no longer me. And I think really, really important is I'm important enough to do the chores of taking care of myself, to listen to my body when it says sit down,
Mhm.
even though that's not what we're taught to do, and to ask for help when I need it. And all of that has been really hard learning for me, but it's, I think my kids have clearly said to me, and my husband didn't really need to say it, he doesn't talk like this. You are important enough in our lives, even if you have to carry this pump around, mom, or even if, we had hoped to do some traveling and where we wanted to go, I'm not sure I can ever go. High altitude things, I just don't know. But in spite of that, those of us with PH or PAH are important enough that it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Um, as you were talking, I know people hear me say why the awareness and advocacy is so important. Um, in your words, why do you think that it is important that we keep educating the world about what pulmonary hypertension is, which is very different than what is often confused with?
Right. Um, there are so many advances right now. This disease would be terminal if someone did nothing about it. It's
Mhm.
just that's the way it's going to be. But there are so many advances that people are living with this. It's becoming much more a chronic thing. And I think everybody deserves that chance
Yes.
if they are diagnosed. And then I would also say so there's 2 other pieces really for family and friends to realize your loved one
Yes.
might need a little more leeway
Mm.
in getting done things or coming to things or being part of things than might seem normal. Yes, but it doesn't mean they just don't feel like it. So letting family and friends know the difference now. And then the last thing is Doctors want to treat us as best we need, but if they don't understand what pH really is about, they can't help. They don't help. They give information that's not helpful. So I think what you're doing is so important for many people that have this diagnosis.
Thank you, Beth. And when you were saying that, it reminds me of, because our focus on patients, caregivers, medical professionals, and the community. And like you said, if the only awareness that they got was like one chapter in medical school and they've not seen anyone diagnosed with PH, I mean, at a certain point, you have to listen to the patient. And if you don't, you have to pick up the phone and refer and call someone and call those specialists. And also being aware of like what medications and even treatment plans. Because I've been in situations where my mother, she was in the emergency room where this was when she had Flolan at the time. And you know, you have to keep those ice packs. So I asked the ER, can I put the ice pack in the freezer? And they said, that's for staff use only. They didn't know anything about it. And I knew that from that. And so when you think about it, if no one on the team even understands the medications, how are we going to get to the right treatment? So you got to sometimes call in those specialists. And I would find myself, even though I was in the ER, I would be on my own phone. Okay, my mother is in such and such. I need to make sure that her doctor knows exactly where she's at and what.
Good for you. Thank you. Thank you.
So we're advocates. So it just reminded me when you said that providers have to also commit to educating themselves. And our patients are advocates, the caregivers become advocates, but together we really can make a difference. So I am so thankful to you. And so is there anything that you said, you know, Captain, I wanted to share this, but you didn't ask me this? It could be anything at all, Beth, that you want to share with the community, because someone's life could be changed by just hearing your story and how you are living life and you're embracing it. And maybe that's because of your faith. I don't know, but you are an inspiration. And even talking to you before we started, the peacefulness that you have, right? Throughout all the stages, you were calm, you believed that you were going to get the answer. So anything that you want to share with people, because we often, we lose hope sometimes, we get tired, but we want to just encourage people. So I'll turn it to you, Beth.
I think what I would say is don't give up, be patient. So some of these drugs take a while to take effect. You know, it's not the 5-day Z-Pack that gets you over your sore throat. And you use the word hope. I really like that. I would say, so one thing with PH is patients with PH have very up and very down days. The weather might make you feel like you need to stay in bed. It's the weirdest thing. A friend of mine and I were just laughing on, we don't even care anymore what the problem is. We just know today's got to be a bed day. Another friend of mine says she has work from bed days. So on the bad days, on the days when you're really miserable and maybe feeling even isolated, what is your hope for that day? What hope can you find in each moment? And I know this disease is tough, but there are many, many, many hopeful things in everybody's life. And if you can just cling to those hopes, I think it helps all of us in ways that our bodies don't even really comprehend. So maybe that would be my last thing.
Beautiful and well said. Thank you so much, Beth, for being here with me.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Brown.
I'm sending you a virtual heart and a
Thank
hug.
you. I love that.
And for those of you joining in, please share Beth's message. You never know whose life you may change by them listening to the words that she just shared during our time today. So again, I'm Dr. Catherine Y. Brown. Until next time, I will see you soon. And I am on the road to, you know that number, 100. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you again, Beth. I appreciate you.